In this lesson, we join having learned how to graph using a table. Now we're going to graph using the slope and the y-intercept. So we'll talk more about that. First, I want you to see that on this main page, the y-intercept has been marked here. The word y-intercept simply means it crosses the y-axis there, and our slope is what's happened to get from point to point. So if you notice, each point we had to go up one and over two. We go up one and to the right two, a little bit like stair steps. So we'll talk more about that. So by the end of this lesson, I want you to be able to identify and define slope and y-intercept. I want you to be able to graph when you're given the slope and y-intercept, and graph when you're given an equation. So we're going to start by looking at what we already know. We already know how to graph given a table. So if they give you this equation, y equals 2x minus 2, and they give you some x values, you can plug in or replace your x with those values. So I replaced my x with the -1 they gave me, and when I put that into the equation, I got y being -4. And then I plotted that point here, -1, -4. When you plug in your 0 and you get your answer for y, it's -2. Plotted that point here. And then when you plug in your 1, you end up with 0 for y. When you've done your math correctly, you'll have a line that goes through all of those points. And remember, if it's a line, it goes on forever in both directions, so make sure you give it arrows. Also, make sure you get used to using a ruler so you have a nice straight line. So today, we're going to go and we're going to learn something called slope and y-intercept. We've already talked about slope a little bit, and we've learned that it has another name. It's called rate of change. We've learned that it is that constant of proportionality. When if it's proportional, it's that same concept where it is the y over x, and it's the rise over run in particular. So I'll show that when we get graphing. Our y-intercept is given to us by the letter b. So we are going to work with the equation in the form y equals mx plus b, where slope or rate of change is your m, and your b is your y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis. So we are going to look at our first example, and we're going to use a table for this, and then we're also going to use the slope-intercept form. So I'll have my x and I'll have my y, and I've been given the equation -2x plus 1. So I'm going to put values from -2 to 2. And for my table, and I'm going to remind myself that y equals -2x plus 1. So if I have the values from -2 to 2, I'll just go ahead and plug in and show my table. -2 times -2 plus 1 would be 4 plus 1 would be 5. So I know I've got to plot the point -2, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm plotting right here, so I will erase my stray marks. If I do this with -1, I end up with -2 times -1 plus 1. So 2 plus 1 would be 3. So now I end up with -1, 3. Right away, I want you to notice it's gone down by 2 and over 1. And then when I plot my 0, I'm going to plug in -2 times 0 plus 1 would give me 1. So I'll have 0 and then 1. So I'm going to see that same pattern going down by 2 and over 1. Now go ahead and just predict, and let's see. I'm going to predict we go down by 2 and over 1, but I'm going to check it out. So -2 times 1 plus 1. -2 would be -2 plus 1 would be -1. So now I have my -1. I don't have a ruler, so I'm going to do my best here, but on digital I just can't make one. And I'm going to connect my points, and that is my line. Y equals -2x plus 1. Now what I want you to notice on this is that it crosses the y-axis here at +1. Y equals, and remember our b was here, that is our y-intercept, +1. Straight away from the equation, you can see it. Now y equals mx plus b. Our slope is the number in front of our x. So it's going -2 over 1, which means it's going down 2 and to the right 1. down 2, and to the right 1. So we can read our slope straight away. We can support it with our chart or our table. Let's look at another. Okay, so now we have an equation that says y equals negative 1/2 x minus 6. We're going to jump right to our table again. So negative 1/2 x minus 6. I'm going to give myself room to compute this time. And I'm going to go in factors of 2 because negative 1/2, it'll cancel out. So I'll do negative 2, 0, and then positive 2, just like we did with our tables the first time round. And I'll leave myself space to work. So negative 1/2 times negative 2 minus 6. Well, negative 1/2 times negative 2 cancels out and gives me positive 1. 1 minus 6 is negative 5. 0 times 1/2 negative is just 0. So I'll have 0 minus 6, which would be negative 6. And then negative 1/2 times 2 minus 6 minus 6. This would give me negative 1 minus 6 would be negative 7. So let's plot those points. So negative 2, negative 5, 0, negative 6, and then 2, negative 7. So what I want you to notice is you have plotted 3 points. You can make your line. But what's important is that you can see that your y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis, is straight on your graph. This time, instead of a positive number, it's a negative. Remember, minus is the same as adding the opposite. So minus is really plus negative 6. And your slope this time is going down 1 and over 2, down 1 and over 2. So I want you to see that negative 1/2, really, our y coordinate is going down, and we call that rise. Even though it's going down, it's a negative number, lets us know it's going down. And then our run is our horizontal, so our rise over run. We'll refer to this as the change in y over the change in x, because y is our up-down and x is our left-right. So when we go to this next slide, we're only going to use the y equals mx plus b form. It says we can use the table, and we can, but right now we're just going to go straight to y equals mx plus b. So the process will be y equals mx plus b. First, identify your y-intercept. I can see that it's positive 7, and you start with a point right there. Second, identify your slope, and I'm going to write this here, 1/3, and I'll remind myself this is the change in y over the change in x, or the rise over the run. What that means is, on the y-axis, it's positive, so I'm going up 1 on the y for every 3 that I go over on the x. So I would go up 1 and to the right 3. Now, sometimes you might say, well, I don't want a graph that's only on the right of this. I want to balance it out. So if I balance it out on the left side, instead of going up 1 and over 3, you can see that the pattern, in order to continue, would have to go down 1 and then turn to the left. So down 1 and to the left 3. In other words, I'm inverting both. Instead of going up and to the right, I'm going down and to the left. Now I can support this with a table if I want to. And when I do that table, I would set up x. I'd give myself space to work, or do it in the margins, and y. And because it is a fraction of with a denominator of 3, I would say negative 3. I want to go factors of 3. So I would just do negative 3, 0, and 3 would be enough for me. And plug in, and you'll check your values. Now, sometimes we can give you straight away, just give you the y-intercept and the slope. And some people find this easier. Some people need to remind themselves, oh, it's y equals mx plus b. Okay, so that means my y-intercept is 3. And I have to know that when the slope is 4/3, that means rise over run, or change in y over the change in x. So I'd go up 4 and to the right 3 to make a new point. When you're doing this digitally, you'll only be given the option to make 2 points. On paper, you can make as many as you want, but digitally, 2 points makes a line, and you can just put them together. My line's not so beautiful. Yours will graph perfectly with a ruler or digitally. So there is my graph. And then here we have a slope and a y-intercept. Notice on this one, y equals mx plus b, I'm going to take care to write my slope in this form. Y equals 2 over 1x, and then my b is 3. I do that because my b is my starting point, it's my y-intercept, but my slope of 2 over 1, I need to know that that is rise over run, or the change in y over the change in x. So that lets me know I need to go up 2 and to the right 1. Now, it's important that you know that sometimes you might need to go the other direction, and sometimes that might be your only choice based on your graph. So I'm going to go up 2 and to the right 1. If I want to go the other direction, I'd go down 2 and to the left 1. And then I can connect my points. Your assignment today is going to be in Delta Math. Make sure you're logged into Delta Math using ClassLink, and then you can head right on over to Delta Math in Google Classroom and click the assignment. And make sure that you know you can do more than the minimum if you feel like you need more practice, and that's okay. I'm only requiring a certain number, but you can go more than that.